What's up, everyone? Welcome to This, That, and the Other, where we talk about Michigan State and Detroit sports. And today we're talking about the Detroit Lions and their 2019 NFL Draft and how they did, how they made out with some of their picks. And I probably won't have a lot to say about this because there's a lot of players that we just flat out, don't know much about. And if we do know anything about them, we're not sure how they'll translate into the NFL. But just my overall reaction was, I think this is going to be a little bit of a wait and see class. I don't think they hit any super home runs in this draft. And to be honest, there was at least one head scratcher in there in the second round. So my overall reaction is that it's just going to have to be a wait and see draft for the Lions. But I think one pick they won't have to really wait and see is their first round pick. I was happy to see they took TJ Hawkinson, and they did fill a position of need, and I don't think they reached for that pick despite what people say about not wanting to take a tight end that early. There's a lot of people that are still thinking about Ebron, still thinking about Pettigrew and how they didn't work out, even though I actually think Pettigrew worked out better than Ebron. That's kind of a hot take of mine that I've had because the Lions seem to do better with tight ends that are, more prone to being pass blockers or run blockers, just helping protect the quarterback. And I think T.J. Hawkinson is a great mix of both of those things. He's definitely a playmaker on the receiving end. He can separate from cornerbacks, and he does a fairly good job of blocking as well. And you come out of Iowa, that's just kind of something you expect. They play a very physical brand of football, and I think that's a very attractive pick for a lot of reasons. And it's hard for me to give a comparison to who I think I've heard people throw around Rob Gronkowski's name, which I think is a little bit presumptuous. I've heard people say Jason Witten as well. But, and I think those are fair comparisons, but I don't think I'll get into comparing them with anyone at this point. But, I don't think that there's a lot of risk with that pick. He's only dropped 2 passes in his entire Iowa career, which is phenomenal, I think. And, we can use as much help as we can running the football and protecting Stafford. And now you don't have to look at Jesse James as being the number one option. I think he's going to be more comfortable in that second tight end role anyways that he's used to in Pittsburgh. So I think it's a great pick, and now the Lions didn't have anyone at tight end a year ago. Now they're loaded with them. So, I don't see how that can be a bad thing. And so I give that pick a solid B+ in my opinion. And the second round pick was the real head scratcher for Lions fans. Where they picked a linebacker by the name of Tavaye out of Hawaii, who didn't really have a lot of notoriety coming into the draft. Reading some of the reviews on NFL.com, sounds like they had him as kind of a potential backup linebacker or a special teams player. So that's one of those things where you just kind of have to have a little bit of faith that the Lions general managers know what they're doing. And, they definitely reached in the pick, but that doesn't mean that he can't exceed expectations. And, but like I said, it doesn't mean it's a bad pick, but, by everyone else's, just by where he was projected to go, I think a lot of people, I don't think you could be wrong in saying that it was a reach to pick him there, and I think, it still is a head scratcher for me though, because he wasn't particularly fast. I think he ran a 4.9 in the combine, and that's almost offensive lineman type speed, or maybe even defensive lineman. But Not a lot of people are going to be bragging about that. I heard he's pretty solid tackler, maybe not so great in coverage, which is something a lot of fans have complained about Jared Davis with. So, that's if there's a reason for cynicism, I sort of see it there. I don't think there's any chance that he starts in his first year. I think he'll see limited time. I think he'll definitely play on special teams, and I think he'll get in the rotation a little bit, and he's just going to have to prove himself from there. But I give this pick a C-. A lot of experts have given that pick kind of like a D- or somewhere in that range, and I didn't want to be quite that harsh because it was pretty surprising. But there were a couple people saying they could have seen him go maybe in the third round. So taking him early in the second round is even that, I think the most optimistic people wouldn't have had him going that high, even the most optimistic. So a little bit of a head scratcher on that one, and that's just one we're going to have to see how it develops. And I don't have much more to say about it. And then they take Will Harris, I believe, out of Boston College in the third round, and he's another kind of just more of a safe pick. They add some depth, or maybe even a potential number 2 cornerback opposite Darius Slay. You wonder what the future of T.A.'s Tabor looks like. I always kind of think about, wanting to see these players prove that, or just kind of, get over the hump where they're have kind of figured out how to be, the player that they were drafted to be. And it's looking more like T.A.'s Tabor might not fill the bill for that. And I didn't really think they had a great need at any of the safety positions, so leads me to think they might move him over to the corner spot. And from what I've heard about this guy, he does have a pretty solid tackling form, pretty good tackler. You look at his measurables, he had a pretty impressive 40-yard dash, and it was a 4.41, which is really fast for any position, actually. So I think he's got the raw talent, and that's another one we probably, it'll be interesting to see if he starts. I think he's got a better chance at starting than Tavaye does, and a lot of people have said he might be used maybe even more of kind of a linebacker role, kind of like Jabril Peppers was at Michigan. Kind of just giving him a lot of freedom, a lot of space to, just be a playmaker. So not much more I can say about that one either. They do take, and that pick I probably would give a B to, maybe a B-. And in the fourth round, the Lions get Anthony Bryant, I believe his name is, from Clemson. And I thought this was a pretty solid pick by the Lions because a lot of people had him going early in the draft, first, second round, from what I've been hearing. So, don't have much else I can say about him other than that. But he was he was a starter on the national championship team, so that's always a positive. And the rest of the guys, I have a little bit of trouble remembering their names. They got a cornerback out of Penn State who was expected to be another one. There's lots of players that were expected to go earlier and didn't, and it looks like he has a very real chance of competing for a starting spot as well. And I'm not going to grade the rest of these guys, but they get a tight end out of Georgia, defensive tackle from Arizona, wide receiver from Old Dominion, and a running back from Maryland, I believe. So I do apologize for not having their names memorized. As you know, that's a little bit difficult to do with the quantity of players that are selected in the NFL draft. But, I'm just... I still think this draft is a bit of a head scratcher, and I don't think it's one of those drafts you can't really grade coming out of the draft. If you did, you'd probably give it somewhere in the C range. But if T.J. Hawkinson becomes an All-Pro player, then I think that's really the saving grace out of this class, and they do need more playmakers. So I'm really not worried about that pick at all. I think he's going to pan out, barring some sort of injury. I think there's almost zero risk in taking this kid. And I think that's probably about all I have to say about the draft so far. And their overall draft grade, I think I give them a C+. So that's pretty much it for the draft. A couple things I wanted to mention. I have been toying around the idea of reviewing some of the Michigan sports radio personalities that a lot of you guys are familiar with if you're in the area. Thinking about reviewing The Huge Show, maybe Rico Beard, Sean Baligian, Mike Valeni, of course, and Big Drew and Jim, some of those guys. Let me know if that's something you guys would be interested in. I'll be posting a poll on Twitter to see what you guys think about that as well. So I think it'd be something that would be interesting to kind of get us through the summer and into football season and the fall, which is one of the greatest sports times of the year. So I apologize in advance. I probably am not going to have a lot of baseball content or hockey content either. So those are not my areas of expertise, but it's possible I might begin to follow them a little bit and have a little bit of commentary on them. I think it'd be an interesting thing to get into. But like I said, let me know what you think about the idea of reviewing those sportscasters. I'm also thinking about doing some of the national shows as well, like Colin Cowherd and maybe Skip Bayless, Stephen A. Smith. And just to tell you right now, a lot of these guys I almost can't even stand listening to, so I might not have as many good things to say about them. I listen to the Dan Le Batard show every once in a while, and I think their show is almost kind of a joke. So just the way that they talk about irrelevant things, and they kind of have a shtick about certain jokes, and they're just not really funny. Some of them are kind of inappropriate and, just not funny overall, not really entertaining. And they have, like a lot of these ESPN or national broadcasters, they talk about the same things every day. And that's why I think a lot of us love listening to Michigan sports shows, because they're just talking about the teams that we enjoy rooting for, and it's kind of nice not having to hear about the teams that are better than your teams all the time, or the teams that are competing for championships year in and year out. But I understand how it is. It's a national show, but so sorry for going on that little rabbit trail there. But that's I'm really looking forward to this. If this comes to fruition, I'd like to be able to maybe get a few more followers before I try doing something like that, because I think it could be a real interesting thing to get into, and I'll have to do it when the time's right on those ones. But that's it for right now, and thank you again for listening. Please like, comment, and subscribe as usual, and we appreciate it. And have a good rest of your week. Bye.